Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everyone? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan. It's our middle of the week Inside the Birds podcast, but no film review because, well, there's no game for us to review. The Eagles are getting back to work this week. In fact, for most people who listen to this podcast on Wednesday when it drops, that'll be the first time the Eagles really get together and do something, and also the first time that Nick Sirianni addresses the media since his last conference before the bye. So a lot of things I'm sure he'll be asked today. A lot of stuff about the COVID going around the league. And we'll see, so far, Eagles haven't felt the sting of it as bad as some other teams, but you just never know. It's a day-to-day thing right now. It's pretty scary. And obviously this is something the NFL, as we talked about on the Monday night show on the Fanatic, Adam, I mean, they're moving quickly with their protocols to either stiffen them up, tighten them up, and then make sure tier 1 and tier 2 employees are getting or the booster shot. But it's not stopping right now. It's kind of raging through the league.
It is scary. I'm not saying I thought we were past the issue. I knew there would be some that would pop up. Yeah, every week you would have some, but for the first 10, 11 weeks, it was really not a big deal. Lately, It has been crushing. I mean, I give the Rams credit for that game, that win they had at Arizona Monday night. It was just, it's hard to believe, considering the day of the game, they lose Jalen Ramsey and Tyler Higbee, their best corner, their second best defensive player, their starting tight end, who's a really underrated player. He does great in the pass and run game. They had other guys, Darrell Henderson, who might have played. He had a quadriceps injury. He went on the COVID list. And this is why depth is so important in the National Football League, because you don't know, as you were saying, you don't know when these things are going to pop up. The Browns now had 8 players go on the COVID list within 2 days. Guess what? Their game is on Saturday, not Sunday.
Yep.
The Chargers didn't have Keenan Allen last week, but they were able to get away with it because they had some good young players in depth. Josh Palmer, by the way, was really the guy who filled in for him. He did a great job. So you got to have depth. And Washington will get to their injury situation. This will be our first update, and we'll update it even further on Friday. We don't root for any teams here, but when we also feel bad every once in a while for a team. Washington, my goodness gracious, what they're going through. Oy.
Yep, it's hit them hard. As people listen to this Wednesday morning, I think they had 10 players on COVID and or on the COVID reserve list, and then some of them are of a prominent name. We'll go through that when we talk about it. And then, as you're mentioning, it's kind of like it's not just you feel like you made it to Tuesday or Wednesday and you're good. I mean, the Rams learned about it the day of a game. And so as we, approach game day, which is Sunday at 1:00, and when we do our pregame show with Jason Avant and Greg Cosell, we may have breaking news going into it. You hope not, but that's the case right now. On Wednesday morning, as most people listen to this, the Eagles have not been as hit hard. We'll talk about who is on the list and how that affects them. But compared to Washington and other teams around the league, they can be thankful. And I thought they were in a bad spot, Adam, not intentionally, but I thought they were going to be in a rough spot. And again, it still might be, we'll see. But because they were on the bye week and you had the players in an uncontrolled environment where they were around the country, coming back from wherever they were from. A lot of guys like to go to warm weather places where, yes, you're outdoors, but you're also usually collaborating with people, whether it's family or whatever. And you don't know the statuses of everybody out there. And it doesn't even matter because, we know that there are a lot of breakout cases. So I thought they were in a bad spot, everybody coming back. But so far, as of right now, not as bad as some other teams in the league. So we'll talk about that as we move forward here in the podcast. We've had some really good interviews lately on ITB TV. We told you about the Joe Banner one. I still recommend, if you haven't heard it, to go back and listen. We went through a lot of different corners of the team on the bye week. I thought Joe was really insightful on a lot of them. And then most recently, we had, and it'll be up sometime today. It may be up for most people who are listening whenever, depending on when you listen to the pod. But with Steven Nelson, Eagles cornerback Steven Nelson, really good interview with him. Thanks again to our friends at Sky Motor Cars for hooking that up. Adam, Steven Nelson is probably one of the more honest, candid guys that we've interviewed before, and also not like a shameless self-promoter. Sometimes guys who talk the game also want to promote themselves, but he had no problem. I don't want to give away the interview, but talking about man coverage versus zone, talking about off coverage versus press, what makes him who he is as a cornerback. He really went into it. and I thought was just extraordinarily honest and candid. He's a very serious guy. Did you get that feel? Like he's very serious about what he does.
But we had some laughs.
We did have some laughs.
We before we got on, we broke the ice a little bit. We didn't know him, so it was great to have him on. He's so smart. Yep. And I had a scouting report on him, so I asked him about it to see if he was accurate. And you'll hear what he says. It's he was really good. We didn't know what to expect, other than we knew he was a pretty sharp guy. And we went into a lot of areas, and he has 2 or 3 things he says subtly if you pick it up about the defense and coverages and so forth. I don't want to give that away. I remember going through this and I'm like, wait, did he just say what I think he said? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I didn't. He snuck that in there, kind of thing. It was good. I'm really glad we had him on.
Also, one of my favorite parts, which I will hint toward but not give away, was his discussion. I asked him about Jason Avant because, Jason was in his last year with Kansas City when he was a rookie with the Chiefs, he being Steven Nelson. And we've heard Jason talk about Steven Nelson going back to when Nelson wasn't even on the team, but kind of the whole idea was out there. And Jason described Steven as a certain way. And then to hear, and not just describing Steven, but how he matched up with him in training camp, to hear Steven also talk about it when I asked, and to hear the way their stories compare is pretty awesome. I liked it. So make sure you check it out with Steven Nelson. It'll be on our YouTube and podcast platforms. And we did do our last 2 podcasts for the bye week, without a game. We looked back on the first 3 quarters of the season, splitting it up between offense and defense, and also previewing what we thought needed to be either better or, used more or whatever in the final 4 as the Eagles get ready for a big stretch here of 4 straight NFC East games. So really encourage everybody to check that out. Please continue to look at InsideTheBirds.com. We've had fresh content up this week. Now I finally, man, I got to bring this up with you. I haven't said anything to you about it. We can joke about it on the pod. I have felt for like 6 weeks now that there's been, and I get it. They lost to the Vikings a couple of weeks ago, so there would have been opportunity. But I have felt like you have held back on the Packers for some reason. Because the comment would always be something like, yeah, but what about their defense? Or their nice job by their defense this week, but they haven't faced a real opponent until next week. You didn't want to put the Packers as number 1 until you were forced to.
Okay, so 2 teams that play them said that they don't play as well as the talent on defense should. As a group overall, the individually they're very gifted, but for whatever reason they don't dominate like they should. And that's last year Mike Pettin was removed because internally they thought he wasn't aggressive enough, so they could bring Joe Barry in, who's a 34 disciple. And they've been good, but not great. But they've been good enough. They're getting better. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers has been incredible with this broken pinky toe. He's playing great football. They've had some injuries, but they're overcoming it. And look, it's a year where you've got a lot of really good teams, but there's no one team where you go, oh my gosh, they're so much better than everyone else. There's no one like that right now. So that's I got to say right now, the Packers are slightly above. The Chiefs they're playing incredible football right now. I'm amazed at their turnaround. They were 3-4, folks, at one point. The Chiefs were.
Yep.
But they've turned the season around, and I had to move the Eagles up. I know they were on the bye week, but if you just look at their schedule and you look at the way that they're playing, I get the Giants was a quagmire. I mean, it was a bet. Their defense, Nelson talks about that. Their defense played well.
Yep.
I think they learned a lot about that game, particularly on offense, and we know who they are offensively. But I do like the one thing about the Eagles I do like is their identity. They know who they are right now. They're not going to change. I know people keep wondering what they're going to do the final 4 games, so they change it all. No, they know who they are. Whether it's Minshew or Hurts, they're running the football. Why? Because they have to know that they can win. You have this great offensive line. They don't exactly have 2 accomplished passers. I know that Minshew is very accurate, and that's what he's known for.
Yep.
But no one, I never thought I'd say this, runs the ball better than this Eagles team. It's one of the most amazing turnarounds I've ever seen. It's never could have predicted this in season, as Joe Banner told us. That takes a lot of chutzpah, so to speak, to be willing to change your entire offense and your philosophy. It's just not done, but they've done it.
I keep calling it a gift to the old school fans who knew that going into the year, the Eagles were not going to be Super Bowl contenders. So if you can give them some kind of solace or gift for the season that it's rare that the Eagles go into a year where they don't have some kind of Super Bowl expectations. This is one of those few years, but at least you delivered the old school fan the run game that fan has wanted for about 25 years now. They certainly got it, and they're going to, as you mentioned, they're going to continue to get it until it doesn't work. So we'll see how that run game travels, right? And cold weather, December, January, all that stuff, it works well. And so the Eagles will have to rely on it. Absolutely. All right, we'll get into it. First, we've been reminding you, get things on Deal Dash, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for your family, holidays, White Elephant. What else is it called? What are the grab bag things called? There's the White Elephant. There's the Pollyanna. Any of that.
Pollyanna, I was going to say, right, or the Secret Santa, whatever you want to call
Santa, all of it. You can get stuff for anybody you want using Deal Dash, the online shopping platform. That's actually fun. Deal Dash is the longest running penny auction website and app around. Some of the things you can get on Deal Dash just sound too good to be true, like a car going for $900. We've seen that. A brand new TV for less than $2. We've seen that too. You can outfit your entire friends and family for the holidays, right? Maybe with less than $20, as long as you're just on Deal Dash and you have the patience to be able to bid the pennies and win all the great stuff at discount prices. So, I mean, you can take care of everybody. So why wouldn't you do that? Don't pay full retail price for things you want. Get on Deal Dash. Go to DealDash.com or download the app. And when you register, enter the promo code ITB for a special offer for some bonus free bids. All right, let's get into the transactions that have occurred. One of them is becoming like my personal favorite transaction. We'll get into that in a minute. But obviously, we talked about COVID, Adam. Jason Huntley from the practice squad is on the reserve COVID-19 list, along with Quez Watkins on the reserve COVID-19 list. Again, compared to the rest of the league, you're like, whew, for now. But Quez Watkins, when you're trying to win some games and improve your passing attack, and he is your third wide receiver, some might say your second wide receiver, whatever. He's your vertical threat. He's made plays this year. If he's not able to get onto the field on Sunday, that's rough for this team. It really is.
Yeah, he is their shot play guy, although they don't really take a lot of shots anymore. But that's actually one of the things we talked about in our first 3 quarters of the season review for offense, is that we'll bring the shot plays back. But he had the game where the average 20 yards per catch, I think, was 3 for 60. Was it against the Jets? It might have been against the Jets. I think it was.
Like that. Right.
Yeah, the DB fell down once or twice. Yeah, but anyway, he that's what he does. And if he can't play, so here's the question: moving us forward here, if he's out on Sunday at home against Washington, you got Devontae Smith. We know he can do it. He did it at Alabama. He could be a shot play guy, but other than that, though, as you were saying, he's one of their top receivers. What would this receiver core look like?
It's a great question. Refresh my memory on who got protected from the practice squad. It was Hightower was among that group, right?
Yep, as usual. And he would be the guy. Because remember now, you can replace these guys on the roster. And to me, John Hightower would be that guy. Because why do they protect this guy every week?
Yeah. They clearly see something in him. I wonder, though, if they think about maybe being more of a 2 tight end offense, 12 personnel offense. Like you could still call him Hightower and put him in there. But do you really want to play Hightower as much as you were playing Quez Watkins, which is anywhere between 60 and 65% of the time? Or would you rather have your Goddard and Stoll, or Goddard and Tyree Jackson, or continue to play as much 13 personnel, which is occasional, that they've been playing, to not only run the ball, but maybe work some play action pass out of that and use those tight ends? I mean, again, Washington's beat up too. They've got a lot of COVID and injuries, and they may be severely undermanned, and it might be a good kind of counterattack for them. I just don't know that the answer is you just put John Hightower and Quez Watkins spot and do what you do.
Right. Well, they protected him on Tuesday. They protected Hightower, Cameron Malvo. He's been with them for a couple weeks. Mac McCain, who, by the way, was signed to the practice squad on Monday, they protect him immediately. And Jared Maiden, who they already had brought up for special teams before. So Hightower protected once again. To me, he would have to be, because right now with Watkins on the reserve COVID list, it's Rager, it's Devontae Smith, It's Ortega-Whiteside and Ward. So they only have 4 on the active. You have to have a 5th guy, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get what you're saying, because Rager's been inconsistent, to say the least. He needs to play at a higher level. Smith is their guy at receiver. Yep. Greg Ward barely is used, and he got a blocking receiver. That's what Ortega-Whiteside does. Mm-hmm. So you need someone who can run. You need someone who can make a play. And John Hightower, who actually started some games last year, let's not forget, early in the season.
Yep.
He's a guy that has ability. We understand you need to grow up a little bit, and whatever the case may be with him last year. But they obviously have seen him grow, because he would not be on the team. He would not be on the team, and I don't expect. People have brought it up. Mm-hmm. Travis Fulgham, I would be shocked if he returned. I think at the point that it happened, that the Dolphins released him, mm-hmm. It just seemed to me when the Eagles got rid of him that they were not going to return in that with him. Just based on what we were hearing, it didn't seem likely that they'd bring him back if it became available. They kind of moved on.
Right.
He had regressed, and they just kind of said, you know what, let's just kind of move on. And not Hightower. Watkins is a guy that really improved. Training camp was, for the most part, really good. And they were hoping to see more of Rager. They've seen him, but he needs to do better. And they know Smith is a really good football player. They're on their way to getting that one right. But they need one more guy. And Hightower, if Watkins is not activated, could be that guy.
Could be that, or the 2 tight end. We'll see.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up the fact.
One thing, though. Tyree Jackson. You mentioned him in passing, and you're talking about 13 personnel. They keep using him as a blocker. This guy, we saw, you and I were at training camp. We saw him. He's pretty athletic. He can move. I understand, he hasn't filled out physically yet. That'll happen in the offseason. But this guy can move. He made some incredible catches. Why not give him a chance to line up in the slot? Let him go out and run some routes.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about, the idea that you've got these division games coming up, starting with Washington, which hasn't seen that element of your game yet. So you're coming out of the bye. It's usually a time when coaches self-scout, evaluate, and then also try to spring something on a team, their next opponent that, they've been working on that they haven't seen yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if you did see a little bit of an attempt to feature Tyree Jackson in the offense a little bit more. Your point on Fulgham, really well taken. I felt that two things that were really telltale. One, when the Eagles cut him and he went unclaimed on waivers and then back on the Eagles practice squad, that to me told you that the book was out. I mean, the league saw what he did last year for 4 games for the Eagles, right? And then he's available and nobody moves to pick him up. So he'd already been on Detroit. He'd already been on Green Bay. And now he'd been cut or waived by the Eagles. That's 3 teams in less than 3 years. So I imagine that what you and I have talked about.
Actually,
4 teams. Who was the other one?
Green Bay, Detroit, Miami, and Philly. That's the 4 teams technically that cut him.
No, but I'm saying when the Eagles waived him, he hadn't been with Miami yet, correct?
Oh, I see what you mean. But I'm just saying, but overall, that's 4 teams.
Yeah, no, I'm just going back to the fact that nobody even picked him up off waivers when the Eagles waived him at the end of training camp.
Yes.
That, to me, told you that the league had already kind of understood what we were reporting. Like, they didn't feel like what they saw last week in 4 weeks was they were just going to get an inherit by claiming him. And then when he doesn't even do anything with the Eagles on the practice squad and then gets released from that and then signs with Miami, he's had injuries at wide receiver all year long, and he can't get on the field for the Dolphins. That's how you know that, everything we said was real. I mean, he's just not really doing what not only the Eagles wanted, but any team has wanted to see from him. So I think that goes to show people. And it's surprising to me that people are like, "Oh, go grab Travis Fulgham. Go grab Travis." Why do you want to grab a player who is not performing up to a level that 4 teams now have not? And it's not like he has to go out there and be DeAndre Hopkins every week. He just has to. I mean, he's got the talent. He's got the body. He just has to show up, and he just hasn't been able to do it. So I can't imagine calling for him to come back.
It would be certainly an upset if they did, only based on the way that it ended. They just kind of moved on. They just felt like he couldn't help them. Whereas they want to take, and I'm sure John Hightower had something to do with it. They felt good enough about Hightower to try to develop him. And he's a kid who's pretty gifted. It's just, his body needed to fill out a little bit. He had some maturity issues, which we first outlined last season. And Fulgham, though, is really gifted. He just, sometimes the coaches will tell you it's up to the player at some point. Coaches can only do so much to prepare a player. At some point, the player's got to take responsibility and say, okay, this is The Lions cut him twice. The Packers cut him. Eagles cut him. The Dolphins cut him off their practice squad. At some point, the players got to wake up and go, okay, you guys are telling me something. It's definitely on me now. I got to get myself together here.
It's a real shame because I think what you saw, I don't think I know, what you saw in those 4 weeks was not accidental because he did things that were very unique to the position for his size, his ability to run. But we talked about his ability to run the right type of routes, attack certain leverages. He had a mental acuity to the game. He knows how to be a wide receiver. If you look at a player like Dorial Green-Beckham, right, who was a tremendous athlete but never should have been a second-round pick and was not actually a good wide receiver. He was a great athlete with all twitched up and physical, but he did not understand how to play the position, right? Nor did he make an attempt to try to get better at it. He just thought he was going to go out there and dominate, and he didn't. That was a big part of it. But with Travis, again, you saw an understanding of how to play the position, make contested catches, use his body. And to me, that's tougher to swallow. Like that's really a wasted opportunity. I think of Bronx Tale when he tells his son, the saddest thing in life is wasted opportunity, right? That's it right there. Because you could be a great athlete. Doesn't mean you're going to be a great football player. But he is a good enough athlete, and he had the mental acuity to play the game, and it just doesn't want to put it together. I don't know. That's tough.
Do we talk to Yvonne about that in the pregame show? Did we talk about Fulgham at all? I don't know if we ever did.
He's talked on the Q&A show about it, about the love for football and how it's kind of tough to coach him. He didn't doesn't really accept the coaching the way you would want a kid to be a sponge and things like that. So I know we've talked to Yvonne, and he's also addressed it on the Q&A show.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyway, let's move on to actual current Eagles who are impacting the team. The injury situation, we'll get more information. By the way, I will say in our discussion with Steven Nelson, he suggested that the shoulder was fine and that he prides himself on being available. So, when he got dinged up in the game against the Jets, came out. I think it was Zach McPherson came in and replaced him, right?
Yeah, he did. McPherson, now we know we kind of know it, but the way that they did it will tell us. He told us that it's the case. McPherson's their top outside left corner and right corner, because remember, McPherson filled in for Slay earlier when Slay got hurt, and then he just did for Nelson in this game. Now, this is the first time that of the times he's been asked to play where he processed what he was being asked to do well. Few mental errors. I think Gannon actually talked about it in his press conference last week. So. He did a good job there, so that's good. At least he got his feet wet, so to speak. Where he showed that he's better now than he was earlier this season. It's a guy that Eagles really like. It's just that he's a 4th round pick. He's on a 2nd or 1st. The expectations are different, but clearly they thought enough of him not to get that veteran outside corner. I still think that was a mistake for depth, but this is what they're doing.
All right, other injury info that we're waiting for, and the guys that we really want to know about, and that'll come out later today, and then as the week goes, is obviously Jalen Hurts. That's the big story, the ankle that caused him to miss the game against the Jets. I imagine, I don't know this for sure, that he would have had to have stayed back during the bye to get treatment on it. So we'll get an update from Nick Sirianni on that and see if there's optimism that he'll be able to play against Washington. Miles Sanders, it sounded like going into the bye that Miles felt like he was going to be fine, and Jordan Howard, Nick Sirianni expressed optimism about him and Jason Kelce. So that's a good thing. And again, we have not yet seen Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard play a full game together. I mean, that's amazing, right? Given how successful their run game's been for the last 6 weeks. It's been they played in half of a game, and then Jordan Howard got hurt. And then it was the Miles Sanders show from then on. So it'll be a really welcome addition, I would think, for the coaching staff to be able to have those two guys kind of pound the rock together.
Yep, I agree. So let me go back to Hurts here. So you first reported this a couple weeks ago that he's also got a heel issue.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like they're two separate things, right? It's that the discomfort from the ankle has extended to the heel. So it causes issues with planting and your foot in the ground and making that throw. Yeah.
Well, this, with that, I know reporters can't watch practice because it's funny. When before Andy Reid kicked us out many years ago, it was great. We're not allowed to report anything what we saw in practice. And you could always tell with McNabb, like I would watch him and I could tell, it was a running joke I had with some of the reporters there. Oh, bad practice. This is not good. It was that Friday practice, which is like an hour.
Yep.
And I was one of the diehards. One time, either Trotter or Dawkins came over to me and goes, why are you the only guy who shows up? I forget. This is like, it could have been 2010. Oh, no. Dawkins wouldn't have been there then, but it was many years ago. But it was before Andy kicked us out. And I love that Friday practice because you could always see if McNabb was going to be accurate. Mm-hmm. And now you mentioned Hurts with it. I know it's connected, the heel and the ankle, to the same injury. But as you were talking about on our last show, you got to be able to plant that foot and drive off of it, of the injured foot.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, so it is. We don't know if it's his right because we don't know if it's his right ankle or left ankle, right?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay,
it was left, but now all of a sudden I don't remember.
Well, the left is a plant, and the right would be his push off, and the right. I know I've heard quarterbacks say different things, which is more of an issue, but whatever the case may be, you still got to push off.
Yeah,
more obviously with the right ankle, and the left would be the plant, and then you gotta torque. So that, look, I know Sirianni kind of acted like he's gonna start. I'm gonna be interested to see how much he practiced. I know. See, the problem with these damn injury reports is when they say limited, that just means less than your normal reps. It doesn't tell you how many. Is it 2 less? Is it 20?
Exactly. It could be 2 reps or it could be 56 reps, which is a big difference. But
it's
at the end
ridiculous.
Of the day, it's still limited. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that the teams get away with that. So that's something we're going to look at. Jordan Howard with a sprained knee. We don't know which ligament it is. Mm-hmm. Your hope is it's an MCL because if it's PCL, it's more problematic. Right. And then Kelsey with the lingering knee. And then, Nelson confirmed, he talked about his shoulder.
Right.
I'll be interested to see if Howard and if Howard and Sanders are available this week. And we don't know what the capacity for each guy because Sanders has had an aggravation. I shouldn't say re-aggravation. It's not a word. Aggravation of that previous ankle injury. Right. We just don't know from a rep standpoint, could Sanders handle 30 snaps, 50 snaps? We don't know that. And same with Howard. That's the thing that they'll get for the week. Today's, Thursdays, and Fridays practices, and plus the walkthrough, and make an evaluation and a decision on how they'll rotate both. With Boston Scott, who, by the way, he barely played in the last game against the Jets because of that illness. Give him prop for even playing because he was not feeling well at all. Mm-hmm. And then the next question is we talked about a couple shows ago. Kenny Gainwell looked really good against the Jets. So here's the question. You can't use 4 backs. That's just not done. But this guy gives you something different from the other guys. What should they do there with these? If they're all available, what should they do?
Boston Scott. I just think that he's more reliable. I don't want to get too far ahead. You got 4 division games, but you have to win this Sunday's game, right? He's more reliable. Pass protection, knowing where to be. I'm trying to think. Did Boston Scott, is he the one that fumbled late against?
He did. Yeah.
But Gainwell's put the ball on the ground once or twice this year too, as well. I go with Boston Scott. If you need somebody to return a kick, he can return a kick, and Kenny Gainwell's got plenty of years ahead. I just think Boston Scott for these games, for this situation, gives you the best chance to do everything that you want to be able to do.
I agree. He's looked great.
I will say this though: if they disagree with me and they put Gainwell in there and not Boston Scott,
that would surprise me.
I'm not going to call it the crime of the century either. Yeah. It's not like Gainwell deserves to be taken off the field. It's just that they have 4 good guys at this position. No doubt about it.
Yeah, it would surprise me if they played Gainwell over Scott. Scott has been, and kudos to them. It's a shame that it took the Jordan Howard injury, or actually what got Scott. Oh yeah, it was Sanders. It was Sanders not being available earlier to get. I think it was the Sanders injury first, not the Howard injury. It was the Sanders injury first that got Scott in the rotation, right?
The Sanders injury is what got Howard in the rotation.
Scott.
They weren't using Howard or Scott, and then Sanders got hurt, and then they wound up using both of them.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. Because Gainwell had a pretty significant role earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And Scott had never had a touch from scrimmage until Sanders got hurt. It's weird, but I hate to say that. I hate this plug and play term, but it's unfortunately it's true here. Mm-hmm. This line is so good. It's like any of these 4 backs, you could use them, and I think they're all going to do well as runners because they're the dominance, the commitment obviously to the run helps, but the holes that they're getting, folks, are almost college football holes. You don't see gaps like this with NFL teams in the run game, but they're getting it.
Right. And they could get bigger if Brandon Brooks is able to get back. Obviously, we'll get an
Oh,
update
yeah.
on him with the pectoral injury. He's been on IR
Oh,
for several weeks now,
yeah.
so we'll see.
He's got to start. He has to start. If he's healthy.
If he's healthy and conditioned, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, right. The condition, if it's conditioned, whenever he's ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
Nate Herbig's a great backup. Brandon Brooks, I'm sorry, is a better football player. No offense to 67.
Yeah,
but
I don't even think Nate Herbig would argue with you on that.
Right, exactly.
Well, all right. Washington's COVID situation and injury situation. Again, we'll just read it here. It's like a scroll at this point.
And I might have missed. I have a couple that I forgot to put on there. I'll give you whenever you're doing it.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick's been out on an IR. Now Heineke hurt his knee in the last game. Yeah, Fitzpatrick's out. Taylor Heineke hurt his knee. It sounds like they're optimistic he'll be able to play against the Eagles. So we'll see there. But their backup is Kyle Allen, who we've seen before with Carolina. McLaurin had a concussion, so we'll have to see about him. Curtis Samuel has been pretty much hurt with so many different things all year long. I forgot he was on Washington, but now he's nursing a groin.
The groin injury is from, actually, believe it or not, it's from OTAs in June. He's had this injury. In fact, when I visited him at training camp, he wasn't even practicing. It's been a disaster. $13 million for a slot receiver is ridiculous. That was Scott Turner and Ron Rivera had him in Carolina. He's a good player, but that's a big number for a slot receiver. Logan Thomas, they don't think it's an ACL, but he's done for the year. It's the second time he's put on IR. Cosme, the rookie, with a hip injury, is put on IR.
That hurts them. He was getting better.
Yep. He needs to get a little bit stronger physically. Yep. And then this is just crazy what's happened to their defense. My goodness gracious. So Chase Young, everybody knows, towards ACL. He's done for the season. Right. Montez Sweat broke his jaw, had surgery, was close to returning, then got put on the COVID list. So they don't know exactly when he'll return. On Tuesday, Tim Settle, who's like their fourth D tackle, he got put on the COVID list.
And he's good. Tim Settle's a good player.
Yeah,
he's a nice player.
Yep. Plays about a third of snaps. Jonathan Allen, unfortunately, got put on IR COVID list. He's vaccinated, but he doesn't guarantee you that he plays. Right. He's on the COVID list. Means Matt Ioannidis will have to play a lot of snaps. Good player, by the way. Really good player.
Yep.
And then Casey Tuho, former Eagle, who had been starting because of the two DNs being on IR, he got put on the COVID list the day of the game, which is brutal. John Bostic, who's sort of a journeyman middle linebacker, who, by the way, should go in the media. He's phenomenal. We've had him on Sirius. He's great. He tore his pectoral muscles. He's out for the season. David Mayo, who started, got put on the reserve COVID list. Don't know if he's going to be back this week. Corner, they're in trouble. Kendall Fuller, one of the top three corners, got put on the COVID list. And Ben St. Juste, I know Cosell really likes him. Yeah. He's had, I think, multiple concussions. He's on IR. We're not going to do the matchups on this show, but we'll have more information for Friday morning show. I mean, they'll put a team out there.
Right. Now, some of these guys might be able to make it back.
Right, exactly.
I know Fuller cannot because I believe he is not vaccinated, so he's not going to be able to make it.
10 days. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So they'll be hurting a corner. So, man, that was like, and a partridge in a pear tree there of Washington injuries. I don't, you know what? It's still, to me, I don't, I will get into the game matchup, but as bad as it is, it's Washington, Philly. I think it's still going to be a tough, grinded out, slobber knocker type of game. And we'll see if some of those, even if just two or three of those guys make it back, depending on who they are, could swing things in a very advantageous way for Washington. So we'll know more by Thursday. And then, of course, Friday, when we come out with our game preview podcast, we'll have that. And then, of course, Sunday, you're going to want to make sure you catch our pregame show because I have a feeling that things are going to come down to the wire. And a lot of the matchups that we'll talk about earlier in the week are going to be different than what we're expecting by Sunday. So that'll be really important.
True.
All right. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB to bet $1 on any NFL team to score, and you can win $100 in free bets. That's right. If that team scores, you score with promo code ITB this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You got to be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And of course, if you're trying to get that advantage over your sports book, you got to download BetQL. It's the only app you'll need to make smart bets. They got a computer model that scans over 350,000 unique bets a year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across every major sport, and also the reason why you should make the bet. Their model covers everything from spreads to over-unders, player prop bets. And of course, if you don't like models and data and whatever, somebody's computer spitting and all this stuff out, you want to do the research yourself, BetQL's got that for you too. They've got the sharp data, the line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a leaderboards to track your success. So go to the App Store or Google Play Store now. Download BetQL. There's also a website. The URL is try.betql.co/ITB. And you just enter the discount code ITB at payment checkout, and you'll get 25% off their subscription offerings. And make sure you check out their sportsbook offers page. If you live in one of the eligible states, you can claim free offers upon signing up at one of the many sportsbooks listed. So don't miss out on the chance to beat your sportsbook this football season using BetQL. All right, we've got a bunch of. By the way, I want to give you one
Really
quick
good.
stat, Adam. I thought
Sure.
this was tremendous because we talked about it. I talked about Route 67 being a very congested highway in the NFL. All the 6 and 7 teams.
Yeah.
There are 24 teams with at least 6 wins in the NFL. That's
Really?
the largest number of teams that have at least 6 wins in NFL history.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
That's unbelievable.
Through 14
wow.
weeks. Yes. I'm sorry. I should say
Listen
through
to this.
14 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, on your number that you just gave out, you said how many now?
24 teams have at least 6 wins.
This is incredible. I didn't even know that, but I'm looking at it now. So in the AFC, there are 13 teams with at least 6 wins. Okay. Bottom feeders are really bad. Jets, the Texans, and Jaguars. And then the NFC, as bad as the NFC is, although it's very top heavy, the first 5 teams are really good. There are 11 teams with at least 6 wins. Yeah, so that's actually 24. Yeah, 24 teams. With
unbelievable, right?
I mean, I didn't know that.
Competitive balance. Yeah.
Well, they love the competitive balance. It's funny. I used to call parody in the NFL office. Anytime I would see one of these guys at the owners' meetings, they correct me. No, it's not parody. It's competitive balance. That's what we're looking for.
Right.
You know why? Because it keeps the fans interested.
Definitely. And of course, opening up that extra wild card spot, has made probably an unprecedented number of teams that look at their schedule and say, hey, we can make the playoffs, right?
Do you like that as an evaluator? Why not?
No, because, and listen, I fully acknowledge that it's good for the game. You asked me as an evaluator, right?
Yes.
No, because I just think that the team that's going to make the 7th seed is just not that good. And so, it's to me, is the 2-7 matchup going to be that exciting? Probably not. I can't imagine that it's going to be. I keep bringing up the game last year between the Bears and the Saints, 21-9. It was a yawner. You're going to have, it's not the making the playoff. It's only like, baseball did the same thing. It used to be, you made the NFL playoffs. You're probably pretty good. You'd have occasional, like you had the Panthers team that won the NFC South with a losing record. You had a Seahawks team that made it with a losing record and then won a game, right? So you'll have that every once in a while. But in general, I just, it doesn't do much for me. Can't say I'm excited about it.
I see. It's interesting. So if you look at the AFC right now, you can make a case. And look, the 1 through 7 are good football teams. Buffalo at number 7.
Yeah.
They're good. Now they're struggling right now. They can't run the ball to save their life. Not that they ever really could, but they can't do that.
Right.
They lost Drew Davis White, their best corner for the season. That's killer. I give Josh Allen just credit for bringing the team back. There's something missing with that team this season. I can't quite put my finger on it. The Colts have turned their season around. The Chargers are the top sleeper team. If they could they're putting together now. They're so up and down. But teams like the Browns and Bengals, who are better than 500, it's going to be tough for them to make it. One of those teams, it's funny. One of the teams won't make it, or 2 of those teams won't make it. But if they're in the NFC, they'll definitely make it. That's the difference between both conferences.
Right. Like if the Bills slip here and either Denver or I can't see the Steelers doing it, but if they do make it in, it's just, oh man. I mean, the Broncos and Steelers, they're just not even fun to watch. Cleveland is not fun to watch, but at least they were in the last year. They got Nick Chubb. The Bengals I can even deal with because Jamar Chase and Burrow and Higgins are fun to watch, but please do not give me the Denver Broncos.
I know. Teddy is
Yeah, it's
Nice
just
guy. That was I'm telling you right now, well, I'll say this now in December of 2021, they're a top half of the league quarterback away
oh yeah.
from being a Super Bowl contender. That's how talented they are.
That's true. They are. I do like
Oh,
watching Javonte Williams, and I think
oh,
that Sutton
yeah.
and Patrick are a really good, no, a really nice physical wide receiver. You're right. If they had a better quarterback, they'd be more fun to watch. Their defense is all right. At least
Good.
Fangio is
Actually pretty
even.
good.
At least Fangio blitzes from different. Like he gives you something fun to watch on defense. So I guess it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but it just I've watched them a couple of times, and
I
really the
agree.
only thing I like about
So
Denver
good.
is watching Javonte Williams run the ball. He's going to
Yep.
be
He's
a
going to be
great
great.
one, not a good one. I think he's going to be a great
You
one.
got Jerry Jeudy, the two tall receivers on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
You got the running backs. Melvin Gordon, he's technically their starter, but Williams is going to be the guy next year. Their line has improved greatly. Their defense is solid. They're just a quarterback away. Teddy was a miscast. Like the GM's done a really good job, George Payton, with that team, but
Yeah.
he brought in a guy he knew from Minnesota. It hasn't worked out. Maybe they'll make a trade for Kirk Cousins if they can't get who they want. But anyway, that's a lot.
Very interesting. That would be
35,
that would
35
work.
million now. His base salary.
True. All right, so let's get into some questions. I know we had some great.
really
We put
good.
it out on the message board. We had really good questions, so I look forward to
These
answering.
are maybe the best questions we've gotten, and these are like exceptional. A couple of these we just can't answer now because we're in December. But we'll start with our friend Evan Altier.
Mm-hmm.
Which veterans do you guys think will not be on the team next year? Cox, Graham, and Brooks. The Cox thing made it extremely difficult with his contract to trade him due to the dead money, and the Eagles could not absorb the kind of dead money it would take. They'd have to do. There's some things they could do to manage it. They could do it a little bit easier in March to trade him.
Mm-hmm.
That one's a wait and see. Graham.
I think Graham's back because I don't think
agree.
Barnett is. So Graham and Sweaty.
Oh, really? You don't think Barnett's coming back, huh?
No, I don't think Derek Barnett will be back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably not. He's just not a guy other than pulling the Nelson Aguilar 1 year, 1 year deal, $10 million, bring him back for one more year.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how the rookie class looks at the end. We'll know more at the Senior Bowl in next month. But and then Brandon Brooks, I'd be shocked if he returns just because they're so deep on the offensive line when everybody's healthy. Whether it's going to be Jack Driscoll, we know Dickerson's got to play. Say Milo's a good football player. He'll be back. He's had some injuries, though. But the fact of the matter is you just don't have room for him. You got to get younger. The question is, can they trade him? Will anyone take him? The guaranteed money on the fully guaranteed money is gone now after the season. So you ask yourself this question, what could you get for him? Great player when he plays. That's the problem. When he plays, he's had significant injury issues. What can you do? So
yeah, I think this latest injury really hurt their chance to get something for him in the offseason in a trade.
Yeah.
He's over 30, well over 30, and now he's had 2 Achilles and a torn pec that kept him out longer than most. So even if he plays really well over the last 2 or 3 weeks, if he's able to make it back, don't think that's going to matter much from a trade unless they get like a 6th. Maybe somebody will give a 6th for him. I suppose that's possible. But other than that, I think the Eagles were hoping to be able to get, if they were going to move on, a higher trade package for him.
I thought had things worked out, I thought they would have been able to move him had he not gotten hurt, but unfortunately he got hurt.
Yep.
Teams I spoke with said they were not shopping him hard. It was kind of like if you were interested in asking about him, they would listen instead of, no, he's not available. Right. There are very few, when you talk to teams, there are very few players who teams will say they won't discuss. Mm-hmm. Just the way it is. Like franchise quarterback, you don't talk about that. But there are very few players on an NFL roster that you wouldn't at least listen to. Right. So I don't, when either we or other people report, this guy, this team was shopping him or they were listening. I mean, it doesn't, I think it's the shock value when you hear it, you go, well, that's not a surprise.
Right.
Why wouldn't they be listening?
Yeah, I mean, the team hasn't been in transition. They haven't really shied away from that, although they've said they're trying to win, but they've also told you that they've been in transition. So
yeah, he turns 33 in August. I mean, man, where's the time gone? Wow.
Seriously.
Brandon Brooks. Yep.
All right, next one.
Yeah, so that would be that on the. Oh, okay. And Evan, we just as you would know now, listen to this. We discussed the Fulham stuff already. So we kind of went into that of why not. It's not a talent issue. He's extremely gifted. It's just commitment to being great. And we, as we said again, he's been cut now by 4 teams, one way or the other. At some point, it's on the player to be great. It's up to you as a player. Fulgham. You gotta point the finger at yourself because it's there, man. I mean, it's the talent's there. It's unquestioned. I mean, the kid's super gifted, and Geoff outlined it earlier. He's got the size of 6'2.5". Hands are really good. Route runner. We had Greg Cosell break him down for us last year. I mean, he raved about him. You never would have believed that he could fall. And the Eagles denied this at first, but then we followed up and they said, yeah, it was part of it. Is the Alshon Jeffrey returning and taking his job? He just didn't react well to it. It just didn't work out. And as we first reported, when he was with Detroit, he thought when he was dominating training camp, I'm going to say before they cut him, maybe their offseason program, he thought he should have been higher up in the depth chart, should get more reps, and it was the coaches want him off the roster. That's kind of based on what we were told. Then that's exactly what happened. They didn't want him. They cut him. Of course, then he goes off here, and I know the Lions weren't very happy about that. But as we said, there's a reason why guys keep moving on, and at some point, it's the players. It's on the player to get himself together.
No doubt.
From Jeffrey Paul Greenbaum. All right, Jeffrey. This is an interesting topic. Okay, we'll address this. We've never really addressed this before. I'm aware of some of this, but we can explain it. So he says, I don't get the disconnect between analytics and commentary regarding Hurts. PFF has him as the 11th rated quarterback. Pro Football Reference has him comparable with Donovan in his second season, also considering running stats. Hurts' bad throw percentage, according to Pro Football Reference, is 6th. Is actually is 9th. So a variety of analytics seem to be relatively high on him. Senior age. Why the disconnect? What have you asked analysts people about? Here's what I could tell you, Jeffrey. It's all based on tape study. He misses. See, it's not just throws. The thing that Geoff and I found out was that there are just too many throws. Like the guy's open, he doesn't throw it. You've heard Jason Avant and Greg Cosell on our pregame shows. They've outlined it. They've been very critical of Hurts when he doesn't pull the trigger on throws. This is typical of young quarterbacks. They don't see it. The more they play, generally you get better. This is the stuff analytics does not cover. This stuff is super important. It's breaking the pocket. We've talked about this a lot. When the throw's there, why are you moving? Stay in there, hang in the pocket, and make the throw like he did against Denver, like he did against Arizona last year. Those are the two examples, Jeffrey, that when he does things the right way, he could be pretty highly effective. And then when he's not, yeah, he can make a nice throw every once in a while, but he has some bad habits that have to be cleaned up. So to answer your question, it's stuff that analytics will not cover, which is super duper important. What quarterback coaches will tell you, it's funny, every quarterback's coach in OC I know uses PFF and they like it, but they feel there's a disconnect between what the tape shows and what the numbers show, and that's the issue, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add to that other than sometimes you can make a play that gives you a good completion percentage, a good passer rating, but it's not the best pass or play on that given play call. And so you've got great numbers, but you didn't put enough points on the board in that play, or you did something wrong on that play. I'm looking at the top rated passers in the league right now. Kirk Cousins is 6th. Jimmy Garoppolo is 9th as far as passer rating. Mac Jones is 11th. Teddy Bridgewater, 13th. Right? Tua, 15th. And yet, if I didn't talk about those names, if I just brought those names up to people, how many people would have winced? Do you like this guy, Kirk Cousins? Tua, everybody loves to bash Tua, especially Eagles fans. They love to be like, oh, we got Jalen Hurts, Tua. And, Tua's actually had a really good last 5 or 6 weeks, actually. But also against bad teams and completing 80% of his passes by not really throwing the ball in the air very much. And so everything is that's why you can't boil this thing down to just data and statistics all the time. You've got to, as you said, go to the tape, and that's where the disconnect is. It's not just a game of numbers. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, I agree. There definitely is. It's with Teddy Bridgewater. If you talk to anyone who's graded their tape, the Denver tape, they go, thumbs down, folks, if you watch this on YouTube. Like, he's not played well this season at all. I mean, it's a fact. He's a very careful thrower. He's very much like Derek Carr. The throws he just will not make that are clearly there where guys are getting wide-ass open downfield, he won't throw it.
Right.
And then every once in a while, he will hit it, Tim Patrick down the field, or Courtland Sutton, who we absolutely love, who could have been an Eagle maybe if he because I know the Eagles really liked him leading up to that draft.
Right.
But who knows if he would have made it to free agency. Maybe his agent, Jake, is from Philly. Went to my high school.
True.
But
Shout out to Jay.
Sutton is a really gifted player. Tim Patrick, who knows? They would have given the Eagles something with size at receiver, which they could use, guys who could play.
Right.
But that's why the tape is so important. I've not heard one good thing about anyone who's graded Denver's tape with Teddy Bridgewater. Occasional decent game. And remember what Greg Cosell said about getting stuck in the pocket before the Denver game leading up. And it's exactly what happened against Denver. He got his feet stuck. He didn't know where to go with the football.
Yeah, clockwork. Patrick Mahomes right now has the 17th best passer rating in the NFL and the 9th best QBR. So how many quarterbacks, if they did a draft today, you think would be taken ahead of Patrick Mahomes?
None.
There's your disconnect.
Well, right, but he has not had a good season. He's definitely at times struggled with his accuracy, and he's forced a lot of throws.
Not good season on 6-game winning streak. So
right. Well, but their defense is playing. Spags has changed that defense, man. They're playing a lot of zone, believe it or not. Which is
it's been amazing how they've transformed. Just kind of like just totally flipped the script on their season, which
it's amazing.
Andy Reid do before.
Yep,
absolutely.
And Andy digs in, man. With his coaches, he'll get on them and he'll coach them up. He coaches his coaches really well. Okay, so for Matt, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. It's either Carrier or Carraher. Tough break for the Eagles with the Rams win last night. Mm-hmm. Cowboys may be playing for something still in Week 18 now. Yeah, that. Yeah, I guess it's true. Sure, the Cowboys. Yeah, go ahead.
I've kind of thought the Cowboys are likely to be playing to win on Week 17, even if they couldn't get the number 1 seed, because I'm inclined
to think. You mean Week 18? Wait.
Yeah, Week 18. Sorry, Week 18.
Okay.
I'm inclined to think that they're going to still be in the hunt for the number 2 seed, and even though you don't get the bye, because what we just talked about, that 7th seed is really an average team at best. It might be a bad team compared to the 5th and the 6th. I mean, there's a big difference to me between the San Francisco 49ers, which might be the 5th or 6th seed, and then whether it's the Eagles or Washington or Atlanta at 7, like whoever. So if you're the Cowboys and you're a loss in the final week of the season gets you the 3rd or the 4th seed instead of the 2nd, then you're playing for that 2nd seed because you'd rather have the way easier matchup in the first round. And then just in case in round 2, the number 1 seed loses, then you get the home field advantage. So I still think the Cowboys are going to be playing to win unless something happens over the next 2 weeks where they're completely out of the 1 or the 2 seed, which I don't see happening. But if that happens, then maybe they've got the division locked up and then they're not going to worry about it. But I regardless think that they will be playing to win the final game of the year.
Oh yeah, look, right now they're only a game back of the number 1 seed. So yeah,
right.
That's you and I are seeing it the same way. So here's and Matt follows up. I've thought about this like several times over the last couple of weeks, and I know you and I have talked about this. How many games do you think the Eagles will need to win in the stretch to make the playoffs? Can they get in going 3-1, or they need to run the table? I would say a minimum of 3-1, which would give them 9 wins, right? 9 wins, which although it's funny, I said all along when I thought the 7th seed would have a losing record. Still may be true. We'll see with so many teams at 6 and 7, but got to go at least, Matt, go 3-1. I can't imagine going 2-2 would get in. Because right now, what helps them is they've got the tiebreaker over Atlanta, New Orleans, and Carolina. There's a weird tiebreaker with Minnesota, strength of victory or something like that.
Yeah.
Which they may lose, but it makes these 2 games against Washington, who technically right now at 6 and 7 is the 7th seed.
Right.
And then unfortunately against San Francisco, they lose it because they lost to them earlier. So I think it would behoove them. You got to win at least 3. I think that they'll be in pretty good shape, but it's so speculative because there's so much that could happen when there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams at 6 and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 teams at 6 and 7.
My bad.
Yeah.
5. I mean,
crazy. No, yeah. I agree. Like I said, Route 67 is very crowded and congested, and this stuff is going to work itself out. I agree with you. I think 3-1 would probably do it. 2-2 kind of then just depends on how the other teams finish, and like you mentioned, the tiebreakers. Anything 2 is dicey, and anything less than 2, 1 obviously is not going to get it done. So, yeah, That's how I see it.
Two quickies.
Before we get to the next question, I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you're checking them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. And let's pause real quick for a word from our other great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, what's the next question?
Jeffrey Paul Greenbaum follows up. I did see this on Mailata's, I think it was his Twitter or IG. I can't remember, one of the two. What do you guys think of the nickname IHOP Brothers from Mailata and Dickerson as they serve pancakes all day long? It's
I feel like there's
great.
A branding opportunity there.
Yeah, IHOP. I'm a IHOP. Do you like IHOP?
I used as a kid, but I like making pancakes better now.
Okay. I'm a big oatmeal guy. I make oatmeal, but with cinnamon and fruit.
All right, there, Wilford Brimley.
Yeah, exactly. Right. IHOP Brothers. Yeah, it is serving up pancakes. Yeah, I like it. I did see it in Mailata's Twitter. And the crazy thing is, I was talking to someone from another team about this, who's watched Mailata a lot over the last 2 years. He said he's come a long way. He's really good. He goes, there's certain things he could get better at. He goes, if you think he's really good now, watch him in a year or two from now. I'm like, really? He could get that much better? He goes, yeah, I'm telling you. This kid's got it in him, and he doesn't know anything about his character. I said, listen, he's a big-time kid. Like, he wants to be coached hard. He's been coached hard. He's accountable. So maybe he could be an all-pro, not just a Pro Bowler, be one of the top players in his position in the league. And Cosell said, what, top 5, he thought? Top 10?
Talent-wise, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he said top 5. But
all right, then to finish this off, Ben Gold. This is a good question, Ben. Talk about the evolution of Gannon's defense and how you see his improvement as a play caller recently. We talked about it in the defensive pod when we were reviewing the first 3 quarters. I thought Steven Nelson, I don't want to give this away, Ben, but he gave some clues if you listen. This is one of the things he dropped in there, which I picked up like, oh, whoa, I heard what he gave a couple nuggets where if you listen, and I just think I think what happened was, I think we're all guilty of this. We crushed him, Gannon. We were very hard on him. But what I should have taken into account is when you have a guy who's calling plays for the first time in his career, and he's taking a defense that's got some holes, he doesn't, like, there's a comfortability factor that you have to have at some point. And over the last 4 to 5 weeks, he's gotten more comfortable. That's why they're giving up less than 20 points a game now. And you could talk all about the schedule you want. That's fine. But the fact of the matter is they're playing with much more discipline. It's getting better. I still want them to be more aggressive, but hey, I can't have it all.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm on with that. I felt like I was, I used to call it Mosher Island a little bit. I felt like over the first 4 or 5 weeks, I would beat that drum saying, hey, look, this guy does not have the personnel that he needs to and I still don't think he does, but at least he's more comfortable with some of the changes that he made, specifically a linebacker. It looks like the D-line has had a little bit. I don't think the alignment is any different, so maybe their buy-in is a little bit more there. They're still inconsistent, but they definitely are showing up more now than they did in, other than Hargrave, who showed up from the start. And in the back end, McLeod was not available the first 3 weeks of the season. I think that was emphasized and underestimated the impact that it had. Anthony Harris is nice. He's just a guy. Slay's been great. And Steven Nelson's been pretty good. He's been what you wanted out of a 1-year free agent signing. But again, they don't have for as much as you and I, and we're not to blame for this, but we talked about the influences, the Minnesota defense, the style, and what we saw in training camp. They just don't have a lot of players that on this defense that are really that excel at moving forward and backwards. They're either one or the other, right? And until he gets those kind of players, I think he's going to pick his spots and be very judicious. And yeah, he's blitzing more, but I think people are correct when they say, all right, great, you're in dime and you blitz Alex Singleton to make a 5-man rush. That's not like something nobody's ever seen before. That's fair. They're doing some disguise and deception. Not the type that, is so crazy that it's mastermind stuff, but it's enough to make Zach Wilson not know what he's seeing because he's Zach Wilson. So, right. And he's seeing it for the first time.
Well,
so
yes.
There's been a give and take there.
Yes, and week one they did a lot of it. It was weird. Like Matt Ryan didn't turn over, but he kept holding on the ball because he didn't know where to go. There were guys everywhere. Like they were doing a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
and then it would dissipate, and they weren't doing anything, and it was very vanilla, and it was struggling. They were struggling off coverage and giving up too many easy throws. And I've learned a lot with Gannon. I've learned that, and it's same with Sirianni. They have to learn the personnel first. It's like a lot of new coordinators, a lot of new play callers go through this. They have to learn the personnel, particularly when they're new to the team. Remember, these guys are new. Gannon's new with these guys. You know, with he knows a couple of the guys because he worked with them before in previous stops. But for the most part, he doesn't know these players. And same with Sirianni. So I think I don't blame anyone for overreacting. I sure as hell did. I should know better, but I did. Because all I've said throughout the show since we've done it for 4 years, I hate seeing bad football. It's painful to watch. Last year, it was the same crap every week. It was like, okay, Wentz is struggling. Bailey should be benched. He was. Their line's beat up. It was. Peterson's losing. He's not coaching as well. That's true. He coached great before that. Things were just not good. They were decimated by injuries. It was an absolute disaster. Well, you're seeing some progress. It's not quite where we need it to be. But it's getting better.
Yeah, no, I think people were right to be very angry and disappointed with what they were seeing. But I'm not trying to suggest that it was inevitable, but I would say that I thought the anger was not funneled or the criticism correctly, because what they were trying to do in the first 6 weeks and the style of defense they were trying to play was not conducive to the personnel they were putting on the field. And that's where I had the biggest issue. And that's beyond sometimes the defensive coordinator, right? I mean, when you're trying to, the biggest issue with the Eagles for the first 6 weeks on defense, before you can even get to the soft coverage and the lack of aggression, is that they did not put teams in opportunities to where you can rush the passer and be deceptive, because they were so bad at run defense. They were constantly second and short, third and short. I mean, you can't do interesting stuff on the opponent dictated with the run every single time, almost every time the Eagles played somebody good. And that's because you can't stop the run when you have Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton on the field. They're not run-stopping downhill linebackers. And once that changed and they were able to stop the run and force more third downs or second and longs, then the D-line can tee off a little bit more. Then Jonathan could be a little bit more selective in when he's going to bring pressure and do things. So it was a chain of events that couldn't happen until they figured out how to stop getting gashed by the run, because they were getting gashed in a way that they're now doing to other teams. Now, what they do on offense to other teams is what was happening to them, except the fact that the Eagles have a really good line in running backs, and people like Leonard Fournette and Chuba Hubbard were just like completely ripping through them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It was getting really – I mean, even Mike – the first week one, even though they won the game, Patterson and Mike Davis were running through them for the first half.
Oh, and inside –
they had to figure that out, and they finally did. So we'll see here I think the big question is, what will we see over the next 4 weeks? Are we going to see Jonathan Gannon if he can stop is he going to be more select? Is he going to come at Taylor Heineke? Is he going to come back at Daniel Jones if that's who's playing, or Glennon or whoever it is? Or is he going to come at Dak if that game means anything, or is he going to be, I got to zone, soft, you know?
I would say off cover. Well, they rarely press, but I would say that although they've been playing more man coverage, their man coverage is way up. Remember, they were 91% zone for like the first 10 weeks, and then they're playing a lot more man. It's still like 65-35 zone, but the Rams, number one zone team in the NFL, never thought that would happen. I think to end this, I do believe that he'll be selectively aggressive. Their disguises are better. They're going to need to do more of that, particularly as you talked about Dak Prescott. Not that he hasn't seen it all, but you just have to make them hesitate, the quarterback, just for a second, to let the D-line eat a little bit, let them get upfield. And by the way, listen to what Steven Nelson said. He dropped a lot of nuggets in this thing, which were very subtle about defensive play and how the D-line and DBs are tied together. It's really interesting what he had to say.
Yeah. Sometimes I think Gannon's a little bit of a front runner with his play calling. In other words, when things start off well and they've got the team behind the sticks, he'll call up some of those blitzes, and you're like, yeah. But when the opponent moves the ball well, he kind of backs off then. And sometimes that's when you need
Oh,
to change the dynamic. That's when you need to reset the tone because they're starting to throw the ball on you a little bit and get comfortable. You need to make them uncomfortable. But in those moments is when I feel like he backs off a little bit, and that's where they get into trouble in those second halves. And some of the times that teams have either come back or just completed a lot of passes on them. So we'll see over the next 4 weeks what's going to happen there. It's going to be a telltale. How they play defense is going to definitely factor into whether or not they win or lose more of these games coming up.
Yeah,
so.
the only thing we know is they will run the hell out of the football. Now, defensively, it's
Yep.
sort of it's a mystery. We think with it, we know what Gannon has kind of morphed his defense into, but it's obviously who's available has something to do with it. But and then Brian Walden, this is an interesting question. It's kind of fun. It's a fun question. We need a little bit more time, so it wouldn't be fair to take this question and answer it in depth. So we'll take your question next time we take questions. It'll probably be a show in January. It'll be one of the first ones. I love this question. I want to give it away, Brian. I want to answer it. Geoff and I will answer it in next time we take questions because I've had some interesting responses, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, we'll do it soon. I'm actually intrigued because you haven't shown it to me. So.
Good. Yeah. No, you have to go to message for it to see it.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his crazy YouTube channel called Sports Talk with Broads, and you can see him get all red in the face and flustered every time the Sixers lose lately. But it's great stuff, so check him out. And also look at his website, broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.